Yo, what's up? Avian here, and today we're going to be talking about my rankings for week 11 after 10 weeks of college football. I'm going to show you guys where we're at, what my top 25 is. I'm going to compare it to the college football playoff committees tomorrow, and watch out for that video tomorrow. But yeah, let's get right into the video, guys. Starting with the first ranked team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. They played Missouri this weekend. They won that game 43-6. They look dominant as always. Their defense is insane. Their offense put up some points, and that's honestly all I have to say. And at number 2, we have the Oregon Ducks. I kind of fought between myself putting Oregon, Ohio State, or Alabama like in the top 4, just because they all underperformed like really bad this week. Even though they were relatively tough games, like Ohio State played Nebraska. Nebraska is okay. The record is, it doesn't show who they are because they're a better team than what it portrays. LSU isn't a bad team either, and they're always like a big rival for Alabama. Washington's always a big rival for Oregon. So I kind of just looked back and thought like, okay, I'm going to put Oregon ahead of Ohio State because they beat Ohio State, and Ohio State's offense has not looked that good. So that's why I have the Ducks at 2. They beat Washington 26-16. Travis Dye went off in this game, so kudos to that man. And then next we got Ohio State at 3. They played Nebraska. They won that game 26-17. And even though Nebraska's got a better defense than people think they do, Ohio State's offense is a lot better than their defense, and they just didn't play that well. Stroud threw 2 interceptions in this game. Martinez, he looked decent. I mean, they couldn't really move the ball against Ohio State either, even though they have the second best offense in the Big Ten, which is still wild to me. But yeah, Ohio State didn't really do their part in this game. That's why I have them at 3. And then we have Alabama at 4. They played LSU. They won that game in Tuscaloosa 20-14. They looked awful in this game. Both teams looked awful. The defenses for both teams played very well. Alabama only ran for 6 yards, which is just terrible. It is terrible, especially for a Nick Saban team with the amount of great running backs that they have. And Robinson's a great running back, so there is no excuse for them to only have 6 yards in that game. I don't care who was hurt. Someone was talking about the center got hurt. It doesn't matter. 6 yards is unacceptable. They looked very bad, so I'm going to have to keep them at the 4th spot behind Oregon and Ohio State. Then at the 5th spot, we have the Cincinnati Bearcats. They won their game against Tulsa, home 28-20. Tulsa got right down to the 1-yard line, and Cincinnati had a goal line stand. They won that game off of that. It was kind of controversial. I think the Tulsa running back fumbled it into the end zone, and then it got recovered by Cincinnati. So good on them for winning that game, but they just aren't looking good. No one in this top 5 looked good this week other than Georgia, and I honestly had a tough time putting it all together. But right after that, we have Oklahoma at 6. They didn't play this weekend. They have Baylor coming up next week, so that's going to be a really good game. And then we got Notre Dame. Notre Dame played Navy, and this game was actually entertaining in the most part because Navy was close at the beginning, but Jack Cohn and the Fighting Irish pulled away eventually to win this game 34-6. Cohn was pretty good. Their defense played very well, and Notre Dame continues to hold on and impress and win these games. Then after Notre Dame at 7, I have Texas A&M at 8. They played Auburn this week, and they won that game 20-3, and honestly, they made Auburn's offense look awful. Bo Nix played bad. He was not efficient at all. I think he was like 20 for 41 with 1 interception. They had no run game, and Texas A&M just showed how great their defense is, and they won this game quite convincingly. And then right after Texas A&M, I have Oklahoma State. They won their game against West Virginia 24-3. Again, Oklahoma State shows why they have the best defense in the Big 12, and I don't really think any other team comes close, to be honest. Not even Oklahoma, not Baylor, none of them. So that's going to be a showdown when Oklahoma State plays Oklahoma. Then to round out my top 10, I have Michigan State at 10. They played against Purdue, and you know, like when Purdue plays those top 3 teams, they win these games, and Purdue beat Michigan State 40-29. That's their second top 3 upset of the year. They beat Iowa earlier, and then they just beat Michigan State. This team is very spotty. Like, they can look so good, but so bad in these other games. Give props to Purdue. Kenneth Walker looked really good in this game. He ran for like 150 yards again. Like I said before, Michigan State, that's all they have is a run game. They don't have a good pass game. They don't have a good secondary. They have a decent run defense, but that's about it. They're not a top 3 team in my eyes, so I put them down at 10. Which is right in front of Michigan, which is the team I have at 11 this week because they won the head-to-head and yada, yada, yada. But Michigan, they played Indiana. They won that game they honestly looked pretty good, but Indiana is a shell of itself this year. They're nothing like they were last year, but they always play Michigan very well. But nonetheless, Michigan won this game 29-7. Hassan Haskins had 170 yards rushing, and he just blitzed that defense. Now, Indiana doesn't have their starting quarterback or their backup quarterback, Jack Tuttle? Yeah, Jack Tuttle. So it's pretty apparent that they weren't going to be able to score much in this game, especially against Michigan's defense. Then number 12, I have Matt Corral's Ole Miss Rebels. Now, they won their game against Liberty. Now, Liberty is a very underrated team. They have a very good coach, and they have a decent quarterback. Even though that quarterback threw 3 interceptions, they're still a good team. Ole Miss only won this game 27-14, and Liberty basically had the same amount of yards as Ole Miss. So without those turnovers, they might have been able to win this game, but Ole Miss hung on and they won their game. And after Ole Miss, I have a team that the committee completely blitzed and just overlooked. The University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners. They're 9-0. They just beat UTEP 44-23 at home. They was really good in this game. Their quarterback Frank Harris threw for 2 touchdowns, 300 yards. And dude, this team is just doing great. Even Sincere McCormick, their running back, had 170 yards rushing, and they're just so underrated. They deserve this 13th spot after this win. Then after the Roadrunners, we have another team that the committee overlooked in general, and the Houston Cougars. They won against South Florida 54-42. Now, South Florida is not good at all, and they let up 42 to that team, and I understand, but they're 8-1. They've beaten some decent teams, and their quarterback is playing very well. Clayton Tune, he went 21 for 26, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. The running back, Alton McCaskill, I think that's how you say his name, ran for 130. So this team isn't bad, and they definitely deserve to be ranked. Maybe not where I have them, but they deserve to be in the top 25. Then to round out the top 15, I have the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. They played North Carolina, lost that game 58-55 in one of the most highest scoring games I've seen, especially of this year. 113 points combined, 58-55. That's just insane. Wake Forest honestly dominated this game all the way to the 4th quarter. North Carolina scored 24 in that 4th quarter, and that is why they won this game. Howell played out of his mind. Well, not really out of his mind, but he played good enough to win this game. It was more Ty Chandler, their running back. He ran for 213 yards. I'm pretty sure Wake Forest threw 2 interceptions as well. Sam Hartman didn't play his best. He didn't have that well of a completion percentage. 23-51. 5 touchdowns though, the 5 touchdowns, but the 2 interceptions were costly, and that's probably why they lost this game. Then we have BYU. They played Idaho State, and honestly, this game was boring. They won that game 59-14. I'm not going to talk much about it. Hall threw for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, and yeah, that's basically it. And then after them, I have Baylor. Now, Baylor played TCU. They lost that game 30-28. First game without Gary Patterson as the head coach. And honestly, TCU put up a good fight. Chandler Morris, their quarterback, he almost threw for 500 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He looked pretty good. Gary Bohannon, he threw for 3 touchdowns but 2 interceptions, 214 yards. Not that great, but their running back, Abram Smith, he ran for 125, but it wasn't enough to get them the win. But after them, I have Iowa. Iowa played Northwestern. They won that game 17-12. Again, Iowa's offense is just looking horrible. Their defense is still playing decent, but their offense is not playing well at all. Only getting 17 points to this Northwestern team is just bad. And then almost allowing Northwestern to win this game is just bad in itself. I don't know what Iowa's doing, but they need a change. And after Iowa, we have the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. They beat Georgia State this weekend 28-8. And both quarterbacks in this game threw for less than 100 yards. Both running backs ran for less than 100 yards. So it was a pretty boring game. But, you know, whatever. Coastal Carolina got the win. Let's move on to my next team. I have Penn State. Penn State played Maryland, and they won this game 31-14. Nice bounce back game after the Ohio State loss. Sean Clifford was 27 for 47. He had 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Talia Tagovailoa was 41 for 57, 371 yards with 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So both quarterbacks showed out in this game. They didn't really have any running game, but yeah, this is very pass heavy, and Penn State got the win. And then after Penn State, I have North Carolina State. They won their game against Florida State over the weekend, 28-14. They looked pretty good in this game. Devin Leary, he had 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 314 yards. Mackenzie Milton played for Florida State. He was 22 for 44, 233 yards. His story is great. I hope the best for Mackenzie Milton in the future. but they just didn't run the ball well or really do anything well in this game. Their defense played okay, I guess. Yeah, that's about it. Then after North Carolina State, we got Purdue with their second top 3 win. They beat Michigan State, I already talked about it earlier. We're putting them at the 21 spot. And then after them, we got Auburn. They lost to Texas A&M. I'm dropping them all the way down to 23 because they just looked really bad in that game. Their offense was non-existent, so that's where they deserve to be. And after that game, I got Wisconsin at 24. They played Rutgers. They won this game 52-3. This is probably one of the best offensive games I've seen from Wisconsin, but then again, it's Rutgers, and they've been blown out a few times this year already. And the funny part about this game, Graham Mertz was 11 for 16, 240 yards with 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and they ran for 129 yards. But the crazy part is Rutgers. They played 4 different quarterbacks, I think, in this game, or 3 different quarterbacks. They played Verdell, Simon, Snyder, and then I think Washington was a wide receiver trying to do like a trick play or something like that. But I think that's insane. Wisconsin, great defense, probably the best defense in the Big Ten, probably like top 3 in the country. So I'm excited to see where they go. And last but not least, we have the Pittsburgh Panthers rounding out the top 25. They played Duke over the weekend. They won 54-29. Pickett, no, he did his thing in this game. He was 20 for 43, 416 yards, 3 touchdowns. Definitely a lot better than the last game. They ran the ball all right. Overall, they just played a very clean game, and they beat a team that they should have beat. So that's why I have them at the end. Alright guys, let me know what you think. That's going to be the end of the video. I'm going to come out with another video tomorrow talking about the college football playoff committee's rankings. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace.